We're facing a bit of a crisis in our world around loneliness. It first came to me when COVID hit back in 2020, that all of a sudden, because people had to kind of be on their own and cut off from going to work, etc., we saw this huge spike in loneliness and everybody started talking about it. But after everything opened up again, what has stood out to me is loneliness is still an issue. Loneliness has not gone away. Loneliness has continued to be a problem all around the world, and it's a significant problem. Prolonged loneliness is now considered as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So it's an issue. It's an issue that has major consequences in every area of our life. And so I want to look at this issue. And I want to begin by just dealing with some of the misconceptions I think that people have around loneliness. So I think a lot of people think that the more friends you have, the less lonely you are. The problem with that is that many people have many superficial friends, but they still feel lonely. So the issue isn't the amount of friends you have. The issue is that you have the type of friend that you can experience true emotional connection, attachment with. They're safe. You can be open and vulnerable. That's what gets rid of loneliness. It's not the amount of friends that you have. Secondly, many people think that if you're married, then you won't be lonely. And what they found from studies is that 60% of married people feel lonely. So marriage is not the solution to loneliness, because many people who are married are in a relationship with an emotionally unavailable person. So they still feel lonely. Another misconception is that introverts experience greater loneliness than extroverts. So extroverts are the people, and they just like being with people. So they think, oh, they're never lonely. No, it's not about your personality. It's about your ability to attach securely to people. If that is interrupted, if you have only experienced insecure attachment, doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, you're going to experience loneliness. Another misconception is that loneliness is just bad. There's nothing good about loneliness. Loneliness can be very bad. We've seen that. But there's a type of loneliness that can be very good for periods of time. It can lead to greater self-understanding, growth. So loneliness is not just a negative across the board. Let me go now to defining what we mean by loneliness. So it's defined technically as a social pain, a psychological mechanism that's designed to motivate people to seek social connections. So if you look at your hunger and thirst mechanism in the body, if you don't have enough food or water, that mechanism is engaged and you have the feeling of hunger or thirst. What is happening in the psychological is if you don't connect, it then engages this longing, this thirst for connection, this feeling of loneliness that I'm missing something. I want connection. So understand again, it's not just the lack of people in one's life that causes loneliness. It's the lack of true connection. That's what we're driving at over and over again. That's what gets misunderstood by so many people. But I need to take it further. Loneliness is not just about the lack of connection with other people, though that's true. It's also about the lack of connection with yourself. And we're going to explain that in a bit, because that's what comes out of complex trauma. You don't connect with others, and so you stop connecting with yourself. Somebody has explained loneliness often develops in stages. It's a progressive thing. So in the beginning, at the onset, something stops you from socializing. So you're not able to make the connection. So it could be you've got problems and you're embarrassed to talk to people about them, so you kind of isolate. Or you got problems and you're afraid to ask for help because you don't want to be a burden, so you keep everything to yourself. Or you're in an environment in the culture where you're just not able to get out socially because of health reasons, because of virus, whatever. And so all of a sudden, you feel a disconnect. That creates then, I feel an emptiness. I feel something's missing in my life. I feel a certain loneliness. So there's an emotional piece, a social emptiness that is felt. So two things can then happen. People can go and try to get connection, but if they try to get connection, but it's not received, it's rejected, then they really feel lonely. Or they're still afraid to ask for connection. They have something going on internally that's stopping them from reaching out and connecting to people. So that then leads to this deepening sense of loneliness. I feel the loneliness. I can't get connection. Now I really feel loneliness. And that can then lead to deep anxiety, deep shame. I must be unlovable. Will I always be alone? Does nobody want to connect with me? Will I ever have a good close friend? And shame, anxiety. It just is building inside of you, and that then can lead to depression. You can just slide into a dark hole that this loneliness and all of the thoughts that are going on in your head are creating inside of you. And that then, for many people, then sends them into even deeper isolation. Well, I guess nobody wants me, so I'm just not going to reach out at all. I'm not going to try anymore. It's hopeless, so I will just remain isolated. And that then just deepens the feelings of loneliness even more. So it becomes a vicious circle for many, many people. Now, what I have found over the years is a lot of people are going through loneliness, but they don't initially detect it. They don't initially even know that that's what they're feeling. So it's like they've been disconnected for so much of their life, they don't even know what to look for, that they're going through loneliness. So let me give you some of the signs that you might be sliding into loneliness. You have been going along feeling pretty good about stuff, but all of a sudden things are just feeling off. Now that could be loneliness, it could be all kinds of other things, but what I want you to see is loneliness could be one of the things that's causing you to feel a bit off in your body, emotionally, mentally. Then you find yourself antsy. It's hard to just settle down and do your healthy routines, to just be quiet, to just be content. There's something unsatisfied in you that's not allowing you to relax. And then you notice that your healthy routines are starting to slip. So the things you used to do every day, you're just not doing them now, that you're letting them slide. And then you're spending more time in distractions, more times on social media, more time watching TV, more time in mindless activities. You begin to develop these feelings, thoughts that nobody loves me, nobody cares about me. And that can develop some pain, sadness, anger, hurt. All of those things begin to just bubble away below the surface. And then you notice you're becoming more negative in your thinking, negative about your friends, family, the world, your circumstances, and this growing negativity is happening. And so what I want you to see is that your emotional world's getting more dark, your mental, intellectual world's getting more dark. It's pulling you in a darker and darker place. And then when you do go out socially, you can be surrounded by people, but you feel all alone. You feel disconnected from people. And that leads to a feeling of hopelessness. That just leads to a feeling, a kind of a persistent low mood. Then you can become very negative in your self-talk. Your internal critic is now putting you down all the time, telling you you're not good enough, nobody wants you. Or you can go to just obsessively thinking about relationships, about some fantasy, romantic relationship that's all you need and then you'll be good. All of those things are signs that loneliness is settling in. So if you got those, just pay attention to them as we move forward. Because the next thing you have to pay attention to is how people begin to respond to loneliness in unhealthy ways. So understand that loneliness initially in a child pulls them in a positive direction. They feel lonely, they want to reach out and connect, to phone somebody, to talk to somebody, to get a hug from somebody. They want a friend. But what happens when complex trauma is in a child's life and they reach out and nobody connects with them? People just reject them, criticize them, they get more pain. And so now when they feel loneliness, instead of going in a positive direction, it now pulls them to further isolation, to destructive self-harm type of behaviors, to hurtful thinking, to more negative emotions. It starts pulling them in ways that might make them feel better instantly, but actually cause them more harm in the long run and make things worse. People can slide into substance abuse. They begin to drink excessively, use drugs, overeat. They're just numbing emotions. Some engage in self-harm. Some begin to neglect their self-care. They're just so full of anxiety and depression, they ignore taking care of themselves, their nutrition, and they begin to lose motivation. Others begin to slide into unhealthy social patterns. They can become extremely clingy. And so now they want to overattach. They force themselves on people. They become overly dependent on people to be there for them, to give them emotional support. They can wear people out with their neediness. Others isolate even further. Who needs people? They push people away. People try to reach out to them and connect, and they just push them away. They avoid social interaction. They ghost what used to be their friends, and they just go into total isolation. Some begin to slide into trying to create connection like they did as a child, not by being good, but by being bad. Let's create drama. Let's create a crisis. Let's get everybody to feel sorry for me, to rush in and rescue me. That's the only way I'm going to get noticed. That's the only way I'm going to get connection. And then others, when people do reach out to them, they can't put the brakes on sharing. They now overshare. They talk. They don't listen. They say too much. They try to drive every conversation to this deep, intimate level about all their problems. And that causes people to get tired of them. For some, loneliness pulls them in a negative direction of reckless or impulsive behaviors. And then others begin to go into escapism, avoidance. So that's your excessive gaming, binge watching of TV, entering into fantasy worlds through books, through movies, through thinking, daydreaming all the time. They're avoiding living in now. They're dissociating into an alternate world that others have created for them, or they're creating for themselves, just so they don't have to feel the loneliness. And then others seek validation in unhealthy ways. So they post provocative stuff on social media or overly emotional content, looking for validation. It's not really the validation they want, but it's better than nothing. Or they engage in toxic relationships. I'd rather have a toxic relationship than no relationship at all. So I will go out with somebody that I know is very unhealthy just to have a relationship. And then others, when they're in their loneliness, they just start to self-sabotage. They sabotage everything good in their life. They stop healthy daily routines and habits. They stop healthy relationships. They start missing work. They start neglecting their children. All the good things in their life, they start sabotaging.